Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead as he stared at the control panel of his ship. The Liberty's Edge was not the prettiest ship in space, but it was his home. For 3 years now he had been working alone, finding broken ships and taking what he could sell. It was not easy work, but it paid well enough to keep him free. The deep space scanner started beeping. Jake looked at the screen and saw a weak signal coming from somewhere nearby. It was a distress call, but not from any human ship. The signal was strange, unlike anything he had seen before. Jake thought about it for a moment. He could ignore the signal and keep going. That would be the safe thing to do. But something inside him would not let him walk away from someone who needed help. His military training had taught him to help others, even when it was dangerous. He changed course and followed the signal. It led him to a small ship floating in space. The ship was badly damaged. Holes covered its metal skin and no lights were working. It looked like it had been in a fight and lost. Jake put on his spacesuit and took his repair tools. He also grabbed his medical kit just in case. The airlock of the strange ship was broken, so he had to cut his way inside with his plasma torch. Though, inside of the ship was dark and cold. Jake turned on his flashlight and looked around. The walls were covered with symbols he had never seen before. Everything was built for people who were taller than humans. The air was thin, and his suit told him it was not safe to breathe. Jake moved deeper into the ship. He found the main room and stopped. 2 figures were lying on the floor, not moving. They looked like women, but they were not human. Their skin was pale blue, and their hair was long and silver. They had pointed ears and were taller than any human woman he had ever seen. Both women wore the same clothes and looked exactly the same. They were twins. Jake checked for a pulse and found that both were still alive, but barely. Their breathing was very slow, and their skin was cold to the touch. Jake looked at his scanner. The ship's life support was failing fast. These women would be dead in less than an hour if he did not do something. He did not think twice. He picked up the first woman and carried her to his ship. Then he went back for the second one. Back on the Liberty's Edge, Jake put both women in his medical bay. He had learned basic medical skills in the military, but he had never treated aliens before. He hoped their bodies worked like human bodies. Both women had cuts and burns on their arms and faces. Jake cleaned their wounds and gave them oxygen. He also started an IV drip to get fluids into their bodies. All he could do now was wait and hope they would wake up. While he waited, Jake looked through their damaged ship. He found clothes, food, and what looked like weapons. He also found a small device that seemed important. When he touched it, it showed moving pictures and strange writing. It looked like some kind of data pad or computer. Hours passed before the first woman opened her eyes. She was scared and tried to get up quickly, but Jake gently pushed her back down. "Easy," he said softly. "You are safe now. I found you on your ship. It was broken." The woman looked at him with large purple eyes. She said something in a language he did not understand. Her voice was musical, unlike any human voice. Jake pointed to himself. "Jake," he said slowly. Then he pointed to her and waited. The woman seemed to understand. She pointed to herself and said, "Kira." Then she pointed to the other woman who was still sleeping. "Zara." Kira tried to sit up again. This time, Jake helped her. She looked around his medical bay with wonder. Then she looked back at Jake and said something that sounded like a question. Jake shook his head. "I do not understand your language," he said. He wished he had a translator, but those were expensive and he had never needed one before. Kira pointed to the device Jake had brought from their ship. She made gestures like she wanted it. Jake gave it to her, and she touched the screen several times. Suddenly, words appeared that Jake could read. "Thank you for saving us," the words said. "I am Kira Velnesh. This is my sister Zara. We are from the world Velnara." Jake smiled. "You have a translator in that thing. That makes this much easier." Kira typed more words. "Our ship was attacked. Bad people want to hurt our family. We had to run away, but they damaged our ship." "Who attacked you?" Jake typed on the device. "The hegemony. They are evil. They want to control all worlds and people. Our father works for peace, so they want to kill him and us." Jake felt anger rise in his chest. He had fought against bullies before, both on Earth and in space. He did not like people who hurt others just to get power. "You are safe on my ship," he typed. "But I need to know more. Are they still looking for you?" Kira's face showed fear. "Yes. They will not stop until we are dead. They have fast ships and many weapons." At that moment, Zara woke up. She looked around in confusion until she saw her sister. The two women reached for each other and held hands. They spoke quickly in their own language. Zara looked at Jake and smiled. She was less scared than her sister. She took the translator and typed, "You are very kind to help us. Most people would be afraid." "I was a soldier," Jake typed back. "I learned to help people who need it." Both women looked surprised. Kira typed, "You were a warrior? You do not look like our warriors." Jake laughed. "Humans come in all sizes. We do not all look the same." Suddenly, the ship's alarm started ringing. Jake ran to the control room and looked at his scanner. 3 ships were coming toward them fast. They were big ships with lots of weapons. Jake ran back to the medical bay. "We have company," he said. 3 ships heading our way. Are these your friends from the hegemony?" Kira looked at the scanner data and her face went pale. "Yes, those are hegemony hunter ships. They found us." Jake felt his heart start beating faster. His little ship was no match for 3 military vessels. But he was not going to give up without a fight. "Can you two walk?" he asked. Both women nodded. They were still weak, but they could move. "Good," Jake said, "because we are about to run for our lives." Jake ran to his pilot seat and started the engines. The Liberty's Edge shook as it came to life. Behind them, the 3 hegemony ships were getting closer fast. Jake could see them clearly now on his screen. They were black and covered with weapon. "Ports!" "Hold on to something," Jake called out to Kira and Zara. "This is going to be rough." Jake pushed the engines to full power. His ship shot forward, but the enemy ships were faster. Laser beams started flying past his windows. One beam hit his rear shield, making the whole ship shake. "They are trying to disable us, not destroy us," Kira said as she looked at the scanner. "They want to take us alive." "That gives us a small advantage," Jake said. "They have to be careful with their shots." Jake turned his ship toward a nearby asteroid field. It was dangerous to fly through floating rocks at high speed, but it was their only chance. The big enemy ships would have trouble following them through the tight spaces. "You are crazy," Zara said, but she was smiling. "I like that." Jake flew between 2 large asteroids. The gap was so narrow that his ship barely fit through. Behind them, the hegemony ships had to slow down. One of them tried to follow and scraped its side against a rock. "How do you fly so well?" Kira asked. She was watching Jake work the controls with amazement. "Practice," Jake said as he dodged another asteroid. "And luck. Lots of luck." For the next hour, Jake led the enemy ships through the asteroid field. He used every trick he knew. He hid behind big rocks and used small ones as shields. His ship was much smaller than theirs, so he could go places they could not. Finally, the enemy ships gave up and turned away. Jake waited until they were gone before he came out of hiding. His hands were shaking from the stress, and his shirt was soaked with sweat. "Are they gone?" Zara asked. "For now," Jake said. "But they will be back, and next time they will bring more ships." Jake set course for Haven Station, a trading post 3 days away. It was neutral ground where people from many worlds came to buy and sell things. If anywhere was safe, it would be there. During the long trip, Jake got to know the two sisters better. They used the translator device to talk, but slowly they started learning some human words. Jake also tried to learn their language, though it was much harder for him. He learned that Kira and Zara were not just twins. They had a special mental connection that let them share thoughts and feelings. They could talk to each other without words. "It must be nice to never be alone," Jake said. "It is," Zara said. "But sometimes we want our own thoughts to be private. It is not always easy to share everything." Jake also learned about their world. Velnara was a peaceful planet covered with crystal cities and floating gardens. Their people valued honor and family above all else. They had been part of a group of worlds that worked together for peace. "The hegemony wants to destroy that," Kira explained. "They think only the strong should rule. They see peace as weakness." "Sounds like some humans I have met," Jake said. "There are always people who think violence is the answer to everything." "But you are different," Zara said. "You could have left us to die, but you saved us instead. That shows great honor." Jake felt his face get warm. He was not used to people saying such nice things about him. "I just did what anyone should do." "No," Kira said firmly. "Most people would have been too afraid. You risked your life for strangers, as..." The days passed. Jake noticed that both sisters were looking at him differently. They asked him many questions about his life and his world. They wanted to know about his time as a soldier and why he chose to work alone in space. "I got tired of taking orders," Jake explained. "I wanted to be free to make my own choices." "That is very human," Zara said with a laugh. "We read that your people value individual freedom above many other things." "Do not your people want freedom too?" Jake asked. "We do, but we think of it differently," Kira said. "For us, freedom comes from working together with family and community. Alone, we are weak. Together, we are strong." Jake thought about that. He had been alone for 3 years now, and sometimes he did feel lonely, but he also liked not having to answer to anyone else. On the second day, Zara became sick. She started coughing and running a fever. Jake was worried because he did not know how to treat alien illnesses. His human medicine might not work on her, or it might even make her worse. "There is medicine on our ship," Kira said, "but it was destroyed." Jake looked at his star charts. There was an old space station nearby. It had been abandoned for years, but it might still have medical supplies. "I am going to check that station," Jake said. "Maybe I can find something to help." "It is too dangerous," Kira said. "That station has been empty for a long time. It might not be safe." "I have to try," Jake said. I will not just sit here and watch her get worse. Jake put on his spacesuit and took a small shuttle to the abandoned station. The place was dark and cold. Most of the systems had failed long ago. Jake had to use his flashlight to see where he was going. He found the medical bay and searched through old supplies. Most of the medicine was too old to use, but he found some equipment that might help. He also found some basic drugs that worked on many different species. As Jake was leaving, part of the station's ceiling fell down. A metal beam hit his shoulder and knocked him down. He was hurt, but he managed to get back to his shuttle with the medical supplies. When Jake returned to his ship, both sisters were very worried. They saw that he was injured and insisted on treating his wounds. "You could have been killed," Kira said as she cleaned the cut on his shoulder. "But I was not," Jake said. "And now we have medicine for Zara." The medicine worked. Within hours, Zara's fever went down and her coughing stopped. Both sisters were very grateful to Jake for risking his life to help them. "In our culture, what you did creates a debt of honor," Kira said. "We owe you our lives." "You do not owe me anything," Jake said. "I helped because I wanted to." "That makes it even more special," Zara said. She reached out and took Jake's hand. "You are a good man, Jake Morrison." Jake felt something strange when Zara touched him. It was like a warm feeling spreading through his chest. When he looked at Kira, he saw the same feeling in her eyes. This was getting complicated, but Jake found that he did not mind. For the first time in years, he did not feel alone. On the third day, they reached Haven Station. It was a huge metal structure floating in space. Ships from many worlds were docked there. Jake had been there before and knew it was usually safe. But as they got closer, Jake noticed something wrong. There were too many ships of the same type docked at the station. They looked like hegemony vessels, but they had different markings. "Something is not right," Jake said. "There are too many military ships here." Kira looked at the scanner and her face went pale. "Those are hegemony ships with fake identification codes. They are already here waiting for us." Jake felt his heart sink. If the hegemony had found them here, where else could they go? Haven Station was supposed to be the safest place in this part of space. "They must have spies everywhere," Zara said. "They knew we would come here." Jake started turning his ship away from the station, but it was too late. The enemy ships had seen them and were already moving to surround them. "Looks like we are going to have to fight our way out of this one," Jake said. 6 hegemony ships moved away from Haven Station and formed a circle around Jake's ship. They were trying to trap him, with no way to escape. Jake looked at his weapons display. He had 2 small laser cannons and some old missiles. The enemy ships had enough firepower to destroy a small moon. "This does not look good," Jake said. "We can surrender," Kira said quietly. "Maybe they will let you go if we give ourselves up." "Not happening," Jake said firmly. "I do not give up, and I do not leave people behind." Jake started his engines and flew straight at the largest enemy ship. At the last second, he turned hard to the right and fired both laser cannons. His shots hit the ship's shield generator, making it flicker and spark. The enemy ship started shooting back. Laser beams filled the space around Jake's ship. He flew in crazy patterns, making it hard for them to hit him. But his ship was taking damage. Warning lights were flashing everywhere. "I have an idea," Jake said. "But you are not going to like it." "What is it?" Zara asked. "I am going to use my ship as a bomb," Jake said. "There is a small escape pod in the back. We can get away in that while my ship explodes and take some of them with it." "No," Kira said. "This ship is your home. You cannot destroy it." "It is just a ship," Jake said. "You two are more important." Jake flew toward the asteroid field where they had hidden before. The enemy ships followed him, still shooting. Jake let them get close, then he started working on his control panel. "What are you doing?" Zara asked. "I am setting the reactor to overload," Jake said. "When it blows, it will take out anything within a mile." Jake worked fast to set up the explosion. He also programmed the ship's computer to keep flying toward the biggest enemy ship. Then he grabbed emergency supplies and led the sisters to the escape pod. The escape pod was very small. It was meant for one person, not three. They had to squeeze together tightly to fit inside. Jake could smell the sisters' hair, which smelled like flowers he had never known. "Ready?" Jake asked. Both sisters nodded. Jake launched the escape pod just as the enemy ships got close to his ship. The pod shot away from the Liberty's edge at high speed. 30 seconds later, Jake's ship exploded. The blast was so bright that it hurt to look at. 2 of the enemy ships were caught in the explosion and were destroyed. A third ship was badly damaged. "Your ship," Zara said sadly as they watched the pieces floating in space. "It was a good ship," Jake said, "but it served its purpose." The remaining enemy ships were confused and angry. They searched for the escape pod, but Jake had turned off all the power except life support. The pod was too small and dark for them to find easily. After several hours, the enemy ships gave up and left. Jake waited another hour to make sure they were really gone before turning the power back on. "Where can we go now?" Kira asked. "They will be watching all the stations and planets." Jake thought for a moment. "I know a place. It is an old mining facility where I used to work. It has been abandoned for 2 years. No one will think to look for us there." The escape pod did not have a long-range drive, so the trip took 5 days. They had to share food and water carefully. There was only one sleeping area, so they had to take turns resting. During the long trip, Jake and the sisters grew closer. They shared stories about their lives and their worlds. Jake learned that both sisters had studied fighting and could use weapons. They were not helpless, despite their gentle appearance. "We learned to fight because our father has many enemies," Kira explained. "But we prefer to solve problems with words, not violence." "Sometimes violence finds you anyway," Jake said. "Like now." "Yes," Zara said. "But you have shown us that some people will fight to protect others, even strangers. That gives us hope." Jake noticed that both sisters often looked at him when they thought he was not watching. When he caught them, they would smile and look away quickly. He was starting to have strong feelings for both of them, which confused him. He had never felt this way about 2 people at the same time. The old mining facility was built inside a large asteroid. It had rooms for workers, machines for processing ore, and a small landing bay. Everything was covered with dust, but it was still in good shape. "This will work," Jake said as they explored the facility. "We can hide here while we figure out what to do next." Jake started setting up defenses around the facility. He used mining equipment to create traps and barriers. He also set up sensors to warn them if anyone came near. Kira and Zara helped with the work. They were strong and learned quickly. Jake was impressed by how smart they were. They figured out human technology almost as fast as he could explain it. "Your people are very clever," Zara said as she helped Jake install a laser turret. "You make things work that should not work." "We are good at making do with what we have," Jake said. "Humans have always been survivors." "That is why we like you," Kira said. She was standing very close to Jake as she spoke. "You do not give up, even when things look hopeless." Jake felt his heart beat faster when Kira stood so near to him. Her purple eyes seemed to look right into his soul. He turned to look at Zara and saw the same look in her eyes. "This is getting complicated," Jake said to himself. That night, as they sat around a small heater eating their dinner, Zara asked Jake about human relationships. Do humans only love one person at a time? She asked. Jake almost choked on his food. Usually, yes. Why do you ask? Our people are different, Kira said. Because Zara and I share thoughts and feelings, we often share other things too. If one of us loves someone, the other feels it as well. What are you saying? Jake asked, though he thought he already knew. We are saying that we both have strong feelings for you, Zara said simply. And because of our bond, those feelings are shared between us. Jake looked back and forth between the two sisters. They were both beautiful and kind. They had risked their lives to stand for peace. And they had both been very clear about their feelings. I do not know how to handle this, Jake said honestly. Where I come from, loving two people at once is not normal. But this is not normal anyway, Kira said with a smile. We are aliens on a space rock hiding from killers. Nothing about this situation is normal. Jake had to laugh at that. She was right. Nothing about his life had been normal since he found their ship. We do not need an answer right now, Zara said gently. We just wanted you to know how we feel. Before Jake could respond, the proximity alarms started ringing. Someone was coming toward the asteroid. Jake ran to the sensor station and looked at the display. 12 ships were approaching fast. They were bigger than the ones from before, and they had more weapons. They found us, Jake said grimly, and this time they brought everything they have. Jake watched the 12 hegemony ships get closer to the asteroid. These were bigger warships, not the fast hunters from before. They had heavy armor and powerful weapons that could blast through rock. They are not taking any chances this time, Jake said as he checked his defenses. They want to make sure we do not escape again. How long do we have? Kira asked. Maybe 30 minutes before they start shooting, Jake said. I need to activate all the traps and weapons we set up. Jake ran through the mining facility, turning on laser turrets and missile launchers. Most of them were built from mining equipment, so they were not very powerful. But they might slow the enemy down. Zara and Kira followed him, helping where they could. Both sisters had found energy weapons from their damaged ship and were ready to fight. You two should hide in the deepest part of the facility, Jake said. Let me handle this. No, Kira said firmly. We fight together or we die together. Besides, Zara added, you will need our help. There are too many of them for one person. Jake wanted to argue, but he knew they were right. He also knew that both sisters were trained fighters, even if they preferred peace. The first enemy ship landed in the asteroid's docking bay. Soldiers in heavy armor poured out, carrying big guns. Jake waited until they were all inside. Then, he triggered the first trap. The mining charges he had planted in the docking bay exploded. The blast destroyed the ship and killed most of the soldiers, but more ships were already landing outside the facility. They are coming through the main entrance, Jake said as he watched the sensors. About 40 soldiers. Jake positioned himself behind a barricade made of mining equipment. Kira and Zara took positions on either side of him. They had a good view of the long hallway that led into the facility. The enemy soldiers came around the corner in a tight group. Jake opened fire with a heavy laser cannon he had taken from a mining robot. The bright beam cut through their armor like paper. Several soldiers fell, but the others kept coming. Kira and Zara fired their energy weapons. The beams from their guns were different from human lasers. They seemed to bend around corners and hit targets that should have been hidden. Jake had never seen weapons like that before. How do your guns do that? Jake asked as he reloaded. Velnari weapons use focused energy fields, Zara explained while shooting at more soldiers. They are guided by thought as much as aim. The enemy soldiers tried to rush their position, but Jake had more traps ready. He triggered explosives that brought down part of the ceiling, blocking the hallway. That would buy them a few more minutes. But the enemy was not giving up. Jake heard the sound of heavy drilling equipment. They were cutting through the rock to make new entrances. They are coming through the walls, Jake said. We need to fall back to the control room. The three of them. Move deeper into the facility. Jake triggered more traps as they went, but he was running out of explosives. Soon, they would have to rely on their personal weapons. They reached the control room and barricaded the door. It was a strong room built to protect the facilities. Main computer, but it would not hold the enemy forever. I am sending a distress signal, Jake said as he worked at the communication station. Maybe someone will hear it. No one will come, Kira said sadly. We are too far from any friendly forces. Jake kept working anyway. He sent the signal on all frequencies, hoping that someone, anyone, might be listening. He also recorded a message explaining what was happening. The enemy soldiers reached the control room and started cutting through the door with plasma torches. Bright light showed through the cracks as they worked. At least we tried, Zara said. She reached over and took Jake's hand. Kira took his other hand. Thank you for everything, she said. You gave us hope when we had none. Jake squeezed both their hands. It has been an honor to know you both, he said. The door exploded inward. Enemy soldiers rushed into the room, their weapons ready. Jake and the sisters raised their guns, prepared to make their last stand. But before anyone could shoot, a new sound filled the air. It was the roar of powerful engines and the crash of explosions. The whole asteroid shook like it was in an earthquake. What is happening? One of the enemy soldiers said. Through the hole where the door used to be, Jake could see flashes of light outside. It looked like a space battle was happening right above them. One of the enemy soldiers spoke into his radio. Command, we have a problem. Unknown ships are attacking the fleet. A voice answered back, full of static and fear. All ships are under attack. Retreat immediately. Repeat, all ships retreat. The enemy soldiers looked confused. Their leader spoke into his radio again. We have the targets. Should we complete the mission? Negative, the voice said. Get back to your ships now. We are taking heavy losses. The soldiers looked angry, but they followed orders. They ran out of the control room and back toward their ships. Jake, Kira, and Zara looked at each other in amazement. Someone came, Zara said with wonder in her voice. But who? Jake asked. Kira was listening to something on her communication device. Her face lit up with joy. It is Father, she said. Ambassador Velnash is here with a rescue fleet. How did he find us? Jake asked. Your communication equipment, Kira said with a smile. It was damaged, but not destroyed. It has been sending our location to Velnari space this whole time. Jake felt relief wash over him. They were safe. But the feeling was mixed with sadness. Once the ambassador arrived, Kira and Zara would go home. He would probably never see them again. An hour later, the space battle was over. The hegemony ships that were not destroyed had run away. Velnari warships surrounded the asteroid, and shuttlecraft were landing in the facility. Ambassador Velnash was a tall, impressive man who looked like an older version of his daughters. He was wearing formal robes covered with symbols of rank. Behind him came several Velnari warriors in battle armor. When the ambassador saw his daughters, his stern face broke into a smile. He hugged them both tightly and spoke to them in their own language. Then he turned to Jake. "You are the human who saved my daughters," he said in perfect English. "I just did what anyone should do," Jake said. "No," the ambassador said firmly. "You risked everything for people you had never met. You fought against impossible odds to protect them. This shows great honor and courage." The ambassador looked around at the mining facility. He saw the traps Jake had built and the weapons he had made from mining equipment. "You are a warrior and an engineer," the ambassador said with approval. "Your tactics were clever and effective. You held off a force many times larger than your own." "I had help," Jake said, looking at Kira and Zara. "Your daughters are brave fighters." "Yes, they are," the ambassador said with pride. "But they tell me that you led the fight. You made the plans and took the biggest risks." Kira stepped forward. "Father, Jake lost his ship to save us. He gave up everything he owned to protect us." Zara nodded. "He has shown us what human honor looks like. It is different from ours, but just as strong." The ambassador looked thoughtful. "What will you do now, Jake Morrison? You have no ship and no home." Jake had not thought about that. Everything he owned was gone. He would have to start over from nothing. "I do not know," Jake said honestly. "I guess I will find work somewhere and save up for a new ship." "I have a better idea," the ambassador said. "Come with us to Velnara. We need someone who understands both human and alien thinking. You could help us build better relationships between our peoples." Jake looked surprised. "You want me to be a diplomat?" "I want you to be a bridge," the ambassador said. "Someone who can help different species understand each other." Jake looked at Kira and Zara. Both sisters were smiling at him with hope in their eyes. "The hegemony is still out there," the ambassador continued. "They will not stop trying to destroy peace between worlds. We need all the help we can get from people who know how to fight them." Jake thought about it. He had been alone for 3 years, and he was tired of it. The idea of working for something bigger than himself was appealing, and the idea of staying near Kira and Zara was very appealing. "What would I have to do?" Jake asked. "Learn our ways and teach us yours," the ambassador said. "Help us understand how humans think and fight. Show us your creativity and determination." Jake looked around the mining facility one more time. He had built something here, turned an abandoned place into a fortress. Maybe he could build something bigger and more important on Velnara. "All right," Jake said. "I accept." The journey to Velnara took 2 weeks on the ambassador's ship. Jake spent the time learning about Velnari culture and language. Kira and Zara were his teachers, and they were very patient with him. The Velnari language was musical and flowing, very different from English. But Jake was good with languages, and he learned quickly. By the end of the trip, he could have simple conversations without the translator device. "You learn very fast," Zara said with admiration. "Most aliens take months to speak our language." "I have good teachers," Jake said, which made both sisters smile. Jake also learned more about Velnari society. They lived in family groups called houses, and each house was responsible for different parts of their world. The Velnash house was one of the most important because they worked for peace and diplomacy. "What will happen to me when we reach your world?" Jake asked. "Will your people accept a human?" "Some will welcome you," Kira said. "Others will be suspicious. Humans are still new to most of our people." "But Father supports you," Zara added. "And our house has much influence. You will be safe." When they finally reached Velnara, Jake was amazed by what he saw. The planet was covered with crystal cities that seemed to grow out of the ground like plants. Gardens floated in the air, held up by anti-gravity technology. It was the most beautiful place Jake had ever seen. "Welcome to our home," Kira said as their shuttle flew toward the largest city. The Velnash family compound was huge. It had living areas, meeting rooms, and even its own spaceport. Everything was built with flowing lines and natural materials. It felt peaceful and calm. Ambassador Velnash gave Jake his own apartment in the compound. It was bigger than his. Old ship and had a view of the floating gardens. Jake had never lived anywhere so nice. "This is too much," Jake told the ambassador. "I do not need all this space." "You are a guest of our house," the ambassador replied. "It would be shameful to give you anything less than our best." Jake's new job was to work with the diplomatic corps, helping them understand human thinking and culture. He also helped plan defenses against hegemony attacks. His military experience and creative problem-solving were very useful, but Jake's real education came from spending time with Kira and Zara. They showed him their world and introduced him to their friends and family. Most Velnari were polite to Jake, but he could tell some were unsure about having a human around. "Give them time," Kira said when Jake mentioned this. "They will see who you really are." As the weeks passed, Jake found himself thinking more and more about the conversation he had with the sisters in the mining facility. They had both said they had feelings for him, and Jake realized his feelings for them were growing stronger. Too, the problem was that he cared for both of them equally. When he was with Kira, he enjoyed her intelligence and strength. When he was with Zara, he loved her kindness and intuition. He could not choose between them, and that worried him. One evening, Jake was walking in the floating gardens when both sisters found him. They had been looking for him all day. "We need to talk," Kira said. "About what happened in the mining facility," Zara added. Jake felt his heart start beating faster. He had been avoiding this conversation, but he knew it had to happen eventually. They sat down on a bench that overlooked the Crystal City. The 3 moons of Velnara were rising, casting colorful light over everything. "We know you have been thinking about what we told you," Kira said gently. "And we know it confuses you," Zara added. "Human relationships are different from ours." "I do care about both of you," Jake said honestly. "But I do not know how to handle that. Where I come from, you are supposed to choose one person. But you are not on Earth anymore," Kira said with a smile. "You are here, with us." "Our father has been watching you," Zara said. "He sees how you look at us, and how we look at you. He knows what is happening." Jake felt embarrassed. "What did he say?" "He said that love is love, no matter what form it takes," Kira said. "And that honor matters more than tradition. He also said that you have earned the right to be part of our family," Zara added. "If that is what you want." Jake looked back and forth between the 2 sisters. In the moonlight, they looked even more beautiful than usual. But it was not just their appearance that attracted him. It was their courage, their kindness, and their strength. "Are you asking what I think you are asking?" Jake said. "We are asking if you want to be with us," Kira said simply. "Both of us." "In our culture, twins who share a mental bond sometimes share everything else too," Zara explained. "It is not common, but it is accepted." "We cannot separate our feelings," Kira said. "When one of us loves someone, the other feels it too. We tried to fight it, but it is impossible." Jake thought about everything that had happened. He thought about how empty his life had been before he met them. He thought about how right it felt to be with both of them. "What would people say?" Jake asked. About a human being with two Velnari women? Some will disapprove, Zara admitted, but others will see it as a sign that our species can truly come together. Besides, Kira said with a grin, when has public opinion ever stopped you from doing what you think is right? Jake had to laugh at that. She was right again. He had never let other people's opinions control his life. All right, Jake said. But I do not know how this is supposed to work. We will figure it out together, Zara said. She reached over and took his hand. Kira took his other hand. We have time to learn. 6 months later, Jake stood in the ceremonial hall of the Vel-Nash compound. He was wearing formal Velnari robes, but they had been modified to fit his human body. Ambassador Vel-Nash stood before him, along with other important members of their society. Kira and Zara stood on either side of Jake, also wearing ceremonial robes. They looked nervous, but happy. Jake felt the same way. Today we witnessed something new, the ambassador said to the gathered crowd. A joining between species, and a bond between three hearts that beat as one. The ceremony was beautiful and meaningful. Jake spoke vows in both English and Velnari, promising to love and protect both sisters for the rest of his life. They made the same promises to him and to each other. When it was over, Jake felt like his life was finally complete. He had found not just love, but a purpose and a family. Later that evening, there was a celebration in the gardens. People from many different worlds had come to witness the ceremony. Jake met ambassadors, scientists, and military officers from dozens of species. You have become famous, Admiral Chen, a human military officer, told Jake. Word of your story has reached Earth. Some people are calling you a hero. I just did what felt right, Jake said. That is exactly why you are a hero, the Admiral replied. As the celebration continued, Jake found himself surrounded by diplomats who wanted to talk about human-alien relations. His unique position as a human living in Velnari society made him valuable to many governments. The hegemony is still out there, one ambassador told him. We need people like you to help build the alliances that will stop them. People who understand that cooperation is stronger than conquest, another added. Jake realized that his life had taken on a meaning he had never expected. He was not just a husband to Kira and Zara. He was a bridge between worlds, helping different species understand each other. Later that night, as the three of them sat in their new shared home, Kira and Zara told Jake about the future they saw. The hegemony thinks that differences make us weak, Kira said. But you have shown that differences can make us stronger. Your human creativity combined with our Velnari wisdom, Zara added. Together, we can build something better than either of our species could create alone. Jake looked around their home. It was decorated with items from both Earth and Velnara, creating something new and beautiful. It was a perfect symbol of what they were building together. What happens next? Jake asked. Next, we keep building bridges, Kira said. Between our hearts, between our worlds, and between all the species that choose cooperation over conquest. And we do it together, Zara added, squeezing Jake's hand. Jake smiled and pulled both women close to him. A year ago, he had been alone, in space, working for nothing but survival. Now he had love, purpose, and hope for the future. The hegemony was still out there, still trying to spread fear and hatred across the galaxy. But they would find that love and cooperation were stronger than any weapon. And at the center of that cooperation was a human who had learned that sometimes the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in service to others. As the 3 moons of Velnara set over the Crystal City, Jake Morrison, human, warrior, diplomat, and bridge between worlds, looked forward to whatever challenges and adventures lay ahead. He would face them not alone, but with the 2 amazing women who had become his partners in every sense of the word. The future was bright, and it belonged to all of them.